Yep.
All right. This is Realtor Fight Club episode 87. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Fight Club. What's up, Jennifer Mertlin?
Hey, Monica. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Good. You got anything going on?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm getting my hair's did today.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, isn't that always a good feeling? Like there's something, I don't know. It's like when you get your car washed and you drive out of the car wash and you feel like your car runs better from the car wash. You ever feel that way?
Yes.
I kind of feel that way when I get my hair cut. Like I just run better.
You going to do anything different? You should get a pixie cut.
Oh my gosh. You know, if I weighed about 40 pounds less than I do now, I could maybe pull off a pixie cut, but I'm not sure I could do that now. That's just my personal belief about myself. That's not a blanket statement about it.
We'll do another podcast about that later.
Yeah, let's do that anyway. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Real Estate Fight Club. We're happy you're here as always. And today, Jen and I are going to duke it out over this question. Should a seller be able to accept an offer and continue to market it, keep it active?
Yeah, I think we need to have like a little caveat. We know the rule. Well, another caveat. Monica knows the rule. I half know the rule.
I think and it may be different. We must acknowledge this. It may be different state to state,
board
to board, whatever.
And we know the custom in the United States is that it goes into a pending status once an offer is accepted. But the question is should they?
Should we do this? Yes. And the theory being you can't market it to the public when it is technically not for sale, because it is not for sale. You're under contract with this other buyer and you can't get out of the contract.
You know what I heard, Monica?
What?
What I heard was in Canada.
Yeah.
That it doesn't go into a pending status until all contingencies are released.
Brilliant. There's so many things that the Canadians do well. It's just unbelievable.
There's this they do well.
Listeners, we love our Canadian listeners.
Hey.
I like that. Now I will say, so we can discuss whether, the advantages of not being able to, or being able to change that rule. I will say that at one point in my career, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, I had a listing and we were having trouble coming to terms. There were some things that needed to happen. This buyer's agent was very knowledgeable, involved with the board, the whole 9 yards, very trusted, like wasn't just a fly-by-night kind of agent. Yeah. And she said that if the buyer and seller want to agree to this, they can agree to this, that they don't have to abide by the terms of the MLS. Now, I, at the time, had never heard of that and was wanting to get these people locked in and still wanted to be able to market it. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So we put together an addendum that allowed us to do that. I mean, it was
but then they would be backup offers.
I actually can't remember all the details, but it wasn't, a without notice or a with notice addendum. So, there were some workarounds. Happened there, and it ended up selling successfully. It was fine, but I was confused by that, to say the least.
I mean, here's the problem, the like nitty gritty of the problem. So like in our state, well, both of us work in 2 states. In both of the states that we work in, once it goes into a pending status, and we've done a podcast on this before, should you show for backup? And I think I would argue that many people don't show for backup. Correct. But I also think that there are different levels of accepted offer. And I know there are different MLS checks, and especially in different states, that says like pending, contingency pending, or something like that. But I think that most agents will not show it if there's any type of pending, no matter where it is in the pending process. Mm-hmm. So I think like, it's not so much that keeping it active or not active. It's more about, does it make sense to continue to show the property? And I think that does depend on the client. but like there's got to be a way that it makes sense, because the problem is when they won't show it, which if it closes is not a problem, but if it doesn't close, now you have this like stigma on the listing if it comes back, and people think something's wrong, and that's not fair for the sellers. It's bullshit.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Parental advisory.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think you're right. It actually is a smart tactic, I think, to talk to your sellers about accepting backup offers and staying open for showings past the pending contract, because you can avoid that on again, off again, the market stigma, like you said. I just don't know, that all sellers understand that. And I
Well, and
don't know
all
if
agents don't understand it either. I mean, I've done this a couple of different ways. So like in today's market where it's like crazy, and we've talked about this before, I think, where if I have the buyer, then we'll call the inspector ahead of time. And let's say I know when the seller is going to review offers. Let's say we're putting in the offer on Friday, they're reviewing offers on Sunday. So I'll call and ask the inspector, hey, do you have a slot open at 9 a.m. in the morning, or can you, do your inspection sooner? And you can go about it that way, right?
Yes.
And if they have an inspection in the morning, then you can call the agent and be like, look, as long as the buyers agree, right? You could be like, look, you can keep it active and we're going to do our inspection. But the problem is, to your point from before, it's like, if they get a better offer, are they then allowed to take it, or are you technically under contract? And I would argue you're under contract. It would be a backup offer.
Yeah, because it is not fair for a buyer who comes to term with a seller who's about to spend $400, $500, $600, $700 doing their due diligence on the property, to then have that, swept away from them.
Well, yeah, but it's also
notice.
not fair for the seller if they tie up a property for 2 weeks for this buyer to do all these crazy inspections, and then for them to then say, well, we don't want it just because. They never have to give a legitimate reason. They just say, we don't want it. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't allow it to go on for 2 weeks in this market for sure. This is like 7 days
so a
in
week.
and out. Yes. I think what we're talking about here probably is it the, rescission or the first right of refusal with notice, the first right of refusal without notice is really kind of utilizing those two, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. Exactly.
Yeah. And using those things, which I know I haven't seen used in a long time. But what seller in this market is going to use the first right of refusal with notice, meaning they'd have to wait 24 hours or 48 hours
or whatever the buyers agreed to, right? It may only be 2 hours.
Right. That's right. So let's just take 1 second and dive a little bit more into what we're talking about, just in case agents aren't familiar with this. So basically, I could write an offer on Jen's property, and maybe my clients have a house to sell. And so it's contingent, which is obviously no bueno in this market. But let's just say we're in a market
for those of you that don't speak Spanish. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. That's no good. So I might put a first right of refusal addendum on this that says, hey, you can continue to market the property and take an offer without notice to me.
Right.
Well, I'm not into that as the buyer. No. And the other side of that is with notice 24 hours, and you're not into that because technically it has to be.
Yeah, but you could do a shorter time period. You could say with notice of 2 hours, and then let's say, or 5 hours, and let's say they agree to something. Let's say they agree to 12 hours. So then if the seller gets another offer that they want, they would put your buyers on notice and say, hey, buyer, we have another offer we want to accept. Are you releasing your contingencies, or should we move forward with this? Then you have the option. You have 12 hours to decide.
Yeah. You know what? You bring up an interesting question. If I wrote an offer to you and I said first right of refusal with notice 3 hours.
Yeah.
And in your listing, you said must give seller 6 hours to review offer.
Right.
Could you continue to market it? Because in theory, that timing would work and the house would
if you're asking me about the MLS rules, I don't know. If you're
I'm
asking me what
just
makes sense, then
yeah,
yes. Do I think the MLS would be upset about it if somebody tattled on you? Yes. Do I think you should be
probably
a
yes.
tattletale? No.
Right. I hope somebody's listening that has some real insight into the rules, at least in the Cincinnati MLS for all of that.
Nah.
Are
We
these
don't need
board
to
rules
know.
or MLS rules? They're probably board rules, I think.
I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
yeah, I think if you were going to do that in the original one, it would have to have the language of not only the first right of refusal, but that also it was allowed, like the buyer and seller agree to keep that the property can remain active with a
Active.
first right of refusal
Yep.
with a 3 hour, notice or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think you're okay with that. But I think, yeah, I mean,
You know what this is like? This is like new construction where you get a lot hold.
yeah,
You're still marketing the property,
yes.
but someone's sort of like holding the house.
That's right. Let's do that.
That is what this is. And it's allowed in new construction,
Why
but
isn't
not.
it allowed in? I know. Boom, problem solved.
Oh, you heard it here first on Real Estate Fight Club. This
I
is
like
it.
it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can
It's
put
a
a hold
hold.
on this house. It's not under contract. It's a hold for you to do your due diligence at your risk, which is
Mhm.
what a new construction
So
client.
then anybody can come in. Can anybody come in and say, I don't have any due diligence that I want to do, and here's my hold money and I'm ready. And then they're
They go
done.
past the hold stage. I think we just figured it out.
In new construction, they don't just let anybody come in. They literally hold it
They do. They do.
for a period
They
of
do
time.
honor that. However, but the point is they can still market it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're getting at here, so that you could
But it's
still
not
market
only
it
just
and
about
collect.
marketing, it's about being able to take another offer too. Because if you have a buyer that's coming in during the hold or during the due diligence period, even if it's active, or if their offer is better, when can they be the primary offer? Is
Right.
it in an hour, in a day, in 5 days?
7 days, whatever, yeah.
Because that's the problem, right?
Mhm.
And then the other problem is what if there's nobody that does that and the original offer, the original buyer backs out, and then you don't have to go from pending to active. It's just
Right.
like it's been on, which is
Right.
better.
Which
Yeah. So
I
I
think
think our
serves the
answer,
seller.
huh?
Serves the seller better for sure.
It does serve the seller better, and it
Mhm.
creates a little bit more urgency for the buyer because sometimes they just want to back out. And many contracts in many states just allow for that to happen at certain periods in their contract, and then they get their earnest money back. So it's never hurting the buyer to put an offer in. It only hurts the
Mhm.
seller, and that's
Mhm.
crap.
Mhm. That is crap.
Fired up.
So let me make sure. I think we brainstormed quite a bit here, but
Yeah.
where do you actually come down on
I'm on the
the
seller side always.
yeah,
I think
that
they
they
should
should
be
be able
able to
to.
market it. I
Mhm.
think there needs to be different levels of contingencies or holds or whatever we call it. I
Mhm.
think contingencies need to be released sooner. I don't like how there's a stigma attached to properties that come back on the market. So I'd rather not have to put it like back,
Mhm.
things like that.
Well, it's no surprise that the contracts mostly favor the buyers. I mean, they protect the buyers through the loan contingency, like
Crap.
the whole thing.
There could be like, um, well, but to your point, you don't want the buyers to have to pay a bunch of money if it's not.
Right. That's the problem. And so I fall a little differently than you. I do feel like, look, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for an investment. We're not talking about, a freaking picture frame here. We're talking about, it's the only thing I could think of for some reason that was cheap. We're talking about a pretty serious purchase, and we're talking about hundreds of dollars in due diligence.
Yeah.
And there has to be a leap of faith by both sides to make it work. And that's the way it's always worked. And it
And in
is
some
working.
states, like in North Carolina and in Florida, they do 2 levels of earnest money.
Oh, like an initial, and then once you're past a certain point.
Yeah, and part of
Brilliant.
it is non-refundable. So maybe it's that, but I also
Yes.
feel like it should be flipped. So in their states, the first one is non-refundable. But I vote that one should be the non-refundable one.
Yes.
So
That no matter what, you're going to offer the sellers this just
yes,
for considering your offer.
Correct. If you want to tie up this property, there's a fee for that.
That's
And it
right.
needs to be a fee that makes sense to the seller to tie up the property, right? So
Interesting.
maybe it's a mortgage payment, something like that.
Yeah. Interesting.
What do you think about that?
I like it. I
Let's
like it.
do it.
All right.
All right, ready to go back to your corner?
Yeah, I think we've solved the world's problems, so we might as well rest. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a short break, hear a word from our sponsor, and when we return, we'll have the final punches.
Welcome back. Now let's get back to the battle, back inside the ring.
Oh,
Jen, did
yeah.
you ask anybody about this? Do you have other
I did. They
opinions?
all gave me like the rules, which I didn't read. So,
Which you didn't have never read anyway. So,
if
not
you
a
don't get in
rule
trouble
follower.
at least a couple of times a day, are you really working hard?
Nope. It's sort of like how we got our hands slapped by the National Association of Realtors for the name of
No.
our podcast. We like this. We like this.
Exactly.
All right. So, what do you say? Give me your summary on should a seller be able to accept an offer and keep it active?
Yes.
And I say no. However, I think we can make some changes to make this a lot more fair for a seller and enable them to set themselves up for win in case of a failed contract.
And keep the buyers from backing out haphazardly or making offers haphazardly. That
Especially in this market, how awesome, how different would it be in these multiple offer situations if you actually had to put some money down that you were going to lose to get into the game? It's like it's your ante. You've got to put in a certain amount to even get into the game.
Right.
It's a freaking poker game, right?
Yeah. I think it's that can be difficult in certain price points, but like
True.
with those price points, it would be less. You know what I mean? Just like it is now.
Yeah. Do you think it would reduce the number of offers being? Yeah.
Because so many people back out.
And they have that mindset. Well, let's just write this and we'll see. And if we're not happy, we'll back out. Like they're trying to win instead of thinking about, should we live here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. I think that's going to have to be the end of today's battle. If you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor and share it with somebody. And we love you subscribing and liking and all of the things.
Write us a review, a nice one, a nice 5-star review, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That would be awesome.
And of course, if you have questions about the benefits of EXP, certainly text or call 513-400-1691. Thanks, Monica.
Thanks, Jen. See you next time.
Yeah.